Hello, guys and gals. After a lengthy hiatus, I'm finally back, working on this project with renewed vigor. Today I want to showcase the first non-player character that's being added to the game. As is a tradition with RPGs, almost each game has this enemy, although the actual context for character is often project-specific. So, without further ado, please meet Skeleton. This specific version is a base form that will be one of the basic enemies in the game, as you could expect judging from its design. As this is the first NPC to be added to the project, we need to establish some ground rules for such characters. First of all, unlike player character, NPCs can be humanoids and non-humanoids. This is important because it defines if the character can use things like equipment and consumables. Humanoids can use them, while non-humanoids can't. This specific character is a humanoid type character, and it means that this character will be able to use the same items as the player character can, which, in turn, defines what animations the character has to have. In addition to basic animations, humanoid NPCs need equipment socket support and event-specific animations. Also, just like player character, this one is designed to have clearly defined body parts: head, upper body, lower body, arms, and legs. Some additional future variants of this character will have slight modifications like missing arm, additional accessories, or bone growth, unique skull shapes, and so on. When it comes to enemies, I've decided to go with group's approach, meaning there's a fixed amount of enemy groups, with each group consisting of very similar characters that are united with common design. For instance, this character represents the melee skeletons group, in which all characters will have minor visual differences and will have different weapon types equipable as their main distinguishing difference. For contrast, another potential group is a group of skeleton mages, each of which represents a mage of specific element, with their visual specifics reflecting their element: fire, water, wind, and so on. In Unreal, additional setup needs to be performed for each character. Things like damage volume setup, weapon sockets configurations, and some additional manipulations. In case of this character, its structure is actually identical to that player character, as described earlier. At this moment, no battle functionality or AI is implemented for enemy characters, but at the very least, a basic spawning and despawning functionality is already up and running, allowing for special spawn point volumes to be placed in any rooms, having weight-based spawn pools to be set up for each such volume, much like spawn points work in Vagrant Story. For instance, any specific point can spawn simple sword-wielding skeletons spawn by default each time player enters the associated room. However, at some specific point in the main quest, or based on some more unique condition like player having less than a certain amount of HP, a special enemy like a werewolf or a specter can spawn at the same spot. Aside from the skeleton character, I also have several less visual and more technical features implemented at the moment. For starters, a basic background loading for game areas has been implemented. It's one of those things that is typically left out of prototypes and is only implemented after production phase of the development starts. However, as I'm skipping a prototype phase in the case of this project, I had to plan, design, and implement this mechanics as soon as possible. It's not really a secret that Unreal Engine has too much going on under the hood for a typical game engine, and this includes the world management during runtime. Therefore, having all game areas loaded in memory while working on a project is probably one of the worst ideas, as it practically turns a development PC into a mini nuclear reactor that no cooler can save. The way loading is implemented completely relies on the room transition mechanics. Basically, each time player enters a new room, the game checks what game areas are neighboring this room and loads them while player moves to a room in the background. All other areas are unloaded at the same time. Areas that are neighboring while being already loaded are ignored, to avoid loading the same area twice. Thus, when player enters neighboring area through the room transition door, the transition is extremely fast, as it takes the same amount of time as if it was just a transition between two rooms of the same game area. In contrast, once the save point warping is implemented later into development, it will utilize areas pre-loading while the teleportation sequence occurs. Visually, it will look very similarly to how it works in Dark Souls and Vagrant Story, with player being able to warp between save points. Last but not least, I've implemented special trigger volumes for game rooms that represent bottomless pits. When player falls into them, it will result in damage to player's health and respawning on the last entrance point to the room, like the door that player entered the room through. As you can see, it works quite different from how bottomless pits in Dark Souls work. If anything, it's more of a Vagrant story approach, where bottomless pits work the same. I find such approach more favorable. While it still punishes player for falling into one of these, the punishment is delivered in strides and allows room for error. For now, this is it. I'm slowly returning to full-time work on the project, and I'm going to try and post progress videos on the project at least once in 2 weeks. And next time, we'll hopefully see the first chops of the game's battle system, as well as some first menus. As for now, feel free to leave a feedback in any form, including likes, subscription, and comments. Bear in mind that I host a Discord server where discussion on this and other projects of mine are held, aside from my YouTube channel. So you can join it if you're interested. The link to the server is in the channel's bio. Thanks for watching and have a great day.